The story revolves around a young guy named Lee Tang. He's a high schooler who gets bullied at school. One night as he was working on his part-time job at the convenience store, he gets into an argument with a drunk customer. However, the drunk guy's friend later apologizes on his behalf and settles things with him. Nevertheless, as he was heading back home, he encounters the drunk guy fallen on the ground. He quickly moves ahead to look for his friend. He informs him about his friend behind him. However, he doesn't seem to care and asks Lee to mind his own business. Suddenly, he gets angry and starts hitting him. Lee starts to recall himself getting bullied in school and he is tired of it. He wants to strike back and sees a hammer ahead. He swings the hammer on his head, and he falls down and dies. Lee gets scared as he didn't intend to kill him. Then a girl arrives there with her dog, but fortunately for Lee, the girl is blind. Lee quickly runs away from the scene. However, the next morning, he realizes that he has left the hammer behind at the crime scene. The cops arrive there to investigate the murder. This guy's name is Nangam, since there are no CCTV cameras installed in this area. They go to the nearby convenience store to check for any clues, where they get to know that both of the victims had visited the store during Lee's shift. He calls him for a talk and begins to question him. He suspects him of being the killer since they had an argument. Nevertheless, he asks him if he heard them what they were talking about while sitting outside, and according to Lee they were talking about their family and nothing suspicious. Then suddenly another detective arrives there, informing Nangam that according to their investigation, both of them had killed each other with a brick and a radio speaker. However, Nangam still feels like it can't be possible, and there has to be a third person involved with his double murder. However, later it gets revealed that one of the victims, Kim Myonja, was a serial killer back in 2009. After a few days, while working at the convenience store, he encounters the blind lady there. Apparently, she's not blind at all and saw everything that night. She threatens him to give her $1,500 in cash. Lee gets scared and starts gathering the amount by asking his owner, friends, and somehow manages to collect 2 million won. As he's waiting for her to come by the store, he gets to know from the owner that a blind weird girl was outside the shop. He quickly goes to check for her. However, he finds that she has left her address behind. He goes to meet with her and gives her the cash. However, the girl becomes greedy and tells him that he needs to pay the same amount every month so that she won't report him to the police, as she shows him his hammer. He gets scared once again. However, he decides to do the unthinkable and commits another crime. Well, she kind of deserved that. After 3 days of murder, the milk delivery man notices the murder, and the police arrive at her house. Nangam goes inside the house to check for the clues, and others find a few human skeletons buried in the garden. Lee is starving himself to death, as he didn't leave his house for 4 days straight, and have been ignoring his friends and family. He also does not understand why the police did not show up at his house to take him into custody. Luckily, all the hints he left behind were licked off by the dog. He becomes upset and longs to put an end to his pain, but he is unable to do so. Then his friend arrives at his apartment. Later that night, as one of the cops, Mr. Park, is walking the blind lady's dog outside, 2 young boys spot him and remember the time he arrested them for bad behavior. One of the guys wants to prove the other one that he's brave enough to attack a cop. He quickly goes towards him and stabs him with the broken bottle, and they run away. At the same time, Lee happens to be nearby that location. While looking at his phone, he gets to know that the blind lady was also a murderer who killed her own parents. It makes him relieved that the people he has killed deserve to die. Meanwhile, the boys are heading home. However, they want to spend the night outside, so they plan to rob the person walking ahead of them, who happens to be Lee. Lee, on the other hand, gets a hindsight that they have done something criminal. And the next day, we find their dead bodies. Lee wakes up inside his apartment. Confused as to how he got there, he notices a paper slip on the floor, and we learn that some mysterious person had helped him get there. Mr. Park, however, has miraculously survived the attack and cancelled his ticket to heaven. Mr. Park has decided to quit and live a simple life from now on. Due to no witness or evidence, the cops couldn't identify who killed those 2 boys. And we get to know that these 2 boys have previously done the unthinkable to a young girl named Yun, who took her life after a month of being ruined by them. However, the rapist's mother started playing the victim card instead, blaming the girl for seducing her son, and because the boys were minors, they were let free. Nangam goes back to the convenience store, and after showing the picture of the blind lady, he gets to know she did visit the store during Lee's shift. However, Lee Tang has already quit the job. Meanwhile, Lee opens the Telegram with different name and joined the group Only for Heroes. The admin of the group welcomes him with his real name, and Lee gets scared, Suddenly he hears the doorbell and receives a parcel. His boss is suing him for disappearing all of a sudden after taking advance money from him, and the police wants him to appear before them at the police station. Meanwhile, another detective goes to Yun's house for investigation as her father might be the killer of those two boys. As he's looking around the house, her father Sangmak suddenly confesses that he murdered those two boys to seek vengeance. Lee, on the other hand, also decides to turn himself in for those murders he did. After gathering all the evidence in his bag, he leaves for the police station. While Sangmak, Yun's father, is being questioned in the meantime, Nangam quickly discovers that he is lying about killing the children because Sangmak is left-handed and the killer was right-handed. He gets released and heads back home. Then, when he recalls his memories, we learn that he actually did want to kill the people who had raped his daughter. And we discover that it was him who brought Lee back home. He is suddenly struck by a car. And we learn that the mother of the rapist boy hit him in an attempt to exact revenge. Later that night, after depositing cash back into his account, he goes out of the ATM and gets his bag snatched away by bikers. The bikers stop at the bridge and search for cash. After taking the cash, they discard the bag into the river. Nangam goes to meet with Sangmak. He tries to make him spit out the real killer's name, but Sangmak keeps telling him that he's the killer. Later, Sangmak encounters Lee at the hospital. He quickly began to chase after him, but falls down. Lee arrives to help him out, and Sangmak starts warning him to leave before the cops see him. At first he gets confused but then begins to recognize Sangmak as the admin of the Only for Heroes Telegram group. He pleads with him to contact him over the telegram and leave. He quickly runs outside but gets seen by Detective Nangam. Sangmak takes a lot of sleeping pills at once as he begins to remember his daughter. In another scene, we see a group of office workers leaving a restaurant. Their boss departs from there and heads to his car, and notices a person who he mistakes for his driver. However, as he's taking him in the opposite direction, he gets suspicious and asks him to stop the car. However, he takes him near a river. The old man is confused and asks his reason to kidnap him. Lee calls someone. His name is Robin. He's the mastermind and the founder of the Only for Heroes group. After going through his computer, he shows Lee that the old man is a rapist and serial killer. And the next morning we find his body floating in the river. Lee, who was a scared, terrified boy at first, now has become a man who delivers justice under the dark shadows. As a result of his inability to apprehend the murderer, Detective Nangam is dismissed. Robin creates a new identity for Lee by the name of Lee Gangsu. He starts working at a supermarket away from the city, and notices a loud lady making a fuss at the place, screaming at a cashier named Gyeong demanding a refund of the groceries she bought 3 days ago. Lee clearly didn't like her behavior. As she was heading back to her car, she finds a chewing gum stick to her windshield which enrages her, and she starts accusing Lee and threatens to report him. But he teaches her a lesson by revealing that he witnessed her stealing food from the trash to falsely demand a reimbursement for it, as Gyeong watches him from afar. She later goes to see him and tries to talk to him. And we get to know that there's some issue going on in her life. Her ex-boyfriend recorded an intimate video of her and posted it online, which ruined her life. Meanwhile, Nangam and other detectives are still trying to find Lee as they're sure all the killings in the last month are done by him. However, the cases are already closed. So they head to Lee's house and try to convince them to file a missing report to them for Lee. However, the family members aren't sure if they need to file a missing complaint. Nevertheless, Nangam managed to convince them. After the complaint registration, they began to look for Lee throughout the nation. In another scene, we see Gyeong. As she's out for a smoke, she gets an unknown call who happens to be her old classmate Sangmin, whom she met not so long ago. She's surprised since she never gave him her number. However, he requests to meet with her. He tells her he also got sextorted by his girlfriend and she broke up with him. He tries to take her empathy as she has also gone through sextortion before. She feels bad for him and allows him to stay over at her place. And during the night, she notices him having trouble sleeping, so she invites him to sleep with her on the bed. The next day, we see him so happy, which surprises his girlfriend, and we get to know that he was playing with Gyeong's feelings. Later, Sangmin goes to meet with Gyeong, and Lee notices the two together and moves away. At Gyeong's apartment, as they're having a conversation, Sangmin gets a notification which he tries to hide from her. However, she stands up and grabs his phone to find that he hasn't broken up with his girlfriend and is even planning to get married. As she starts questioning him, he reveals that he saw her leaked video with her ex a while back and got excited by it and had to lie to do it with her. She gets mad at him for lying and they start fighting. Sangmin pushes her on bed and strangles her to death. However, he's scared of being found out, and later we get to know that he had set the apartment on fire. Lee gets to know about it from his manager that Gyeong died in a fire incident. Furthermore, he notices a guy looking at him, and starts avoiding him. He tries to immediately leave the place, but he also notices Detective Nangnam. He quickly runs as he follows him. He gets inside the back room where he tumbles on the floor. The man comes up front. His name is Chan. He has been looking for Lee. However, Lee manages to get away from him this time. And Nangnam goes to check for CCTV footage but learns that some mysterious person has stolen the hard drive. Chan learns that Sangmin was the last person to be seen with Gyeong from the CCTV footage. As Sangmin arrives back at home, he notices Chan there. He starts interrogating him. He makes him confess that he did sleep with Gyeong the other night, but he refuses to accept that he killed her. However, Chan knows that it was him who killed her, and he starts taking out tape and other stuff from his bag. Meanwhile, Lee is running away from the cops and is scared. He informs Robin that he's being chased by the police. Sangmin is restrained by Chan, who also gives him a notepad to confess to killing Gyeong. After that, Chan kills Sangmin and considers setting the place on fire to remove any remaining evidence. At the same time, two detectives arrive at Sangmin's apartment as Chan leaves from there. However, they find the door locked. They begin to hear a weird sound coming from the room, and suddenly the gas cylinders blast. Though he was fortunately not seriously injured, he tells Nangmin that he witnessed a fugitive from law enforcement outside Sangmin's apartment. Meanwhile, Lee is heading somewhere and is at the metro where he notices a man secretly groping a lady. However, she doesn't stay quiet and tries to confront him. The guy claims to be innocent and asks if anyone saw him. But in an attempt to keep low, Lee leaves and heads to a gaming store. During this, Robin arrives back to his apartment where he meets with Chan present in his room. And as the conversation goes on between them, we get to know that Chan was previously a part of the Only for Heroes group. However, he got tired of it and left. But now he's come back and is looking for the new guy Lee. But according to Robin, Lee is off the radar and he can't find him. Meanwhile, he is at the gaming cafe, and suddenly gets a sneaking suspicion that the guy sitting next to him is a murderer. However, Lee is tired of playing the hero and leaves from there. Detective Young, in the meantime, leaves the hospital with suspicions that Robin is the mastermind behind all of these killings. He arrives at his apartment, where he runs into Chan. Chan, after getting to know that he's a cop, he throws him outside the building. And later we get to know that Robin reported the incident and is ready to confess. He gives the documents of Chan to Nangmin. Nangmin also asks him to confess about Lee. However, Robin says that Lee is different and has nothing to do with this case. Meanwhile, a young couple is enjoying themselves when they are annoyed by a car driver revving. The guy starts threatening the old man in a rude way, as Chan watches them from afar. And later teaches them a lesson. He begins to ask the young girl to behave herself if she wants to live and act like a model citizen. Suddenly he asks for a pen, and through the conversation, he gets to know that she's an art student. He gets scared as she might draw his face if he lets her live. In the interim, we learn that Lee actually killed the man he saw at the gaming cafe. And we learn that the girl Chan murdered was the granddaughter of the chairman of a well-established construction company. Detective Moon assigns Nangmin back to the police department to assist him in his quest for an expedient resolution to this case. During Robin's confession, he receives a call from Lee. He goes out to talk to him. Lee demands to meet with Chan. As Chan is looking through all the confession notes he got from his victims, he receives a message from Robin, informing him to meet with Lee. Lee receives a video call from Chan, and he begins to guide him to meet with him at a club. He reaches there and sits down beside him. As they're talking, Robin is leading a few men to Chan using the tracker installed on Lee's phone. Chan, who is interested in learning how he identifies the offenders, informs him that he has heard that Lee has some kind of superpower that allows him to spot the offenders. Robin and others arrive at the location. However, the thugs have had enough of him and leave him behind. Chan asks him to not trust Robin and wants him to join him instead. He stands up to leave and asks him to think about his offer. However, Lee suddenly rushes towards Chan with a knife, but he notices him and throws him away. As Chan was about to kill Lee, he hears a noise and sees a group of people come looking for him. When Lee quickly leaves after realizing they do not recognize him, he discovers Robin outdoors. He frees Robin and suddenly begins to cry, expressing his fear of getting caught. All of a sudden, they hear gunfire. Chan is pointing a pistol at the thugs. However, the men start to attack him and he manages to shoot all of them, and gets to know from one of them that he's being hunted by the grandfather of the young girl he killed. Later, the cops arrived there and found a few men grounded. Nangman and others begin to investigate and find Lee in the CCTV camera. They eventually located Chan's apartment by searching through all of the local CCTV cameras. They get to his house, and Chan watches over them from a distance. Once they are in his room, they discover the victim's confession diaries. Robin plans to leave the city and go somewhere very far in the south. Elsewhere, we see Gajak, the guy who hired thugs to kill Chan. Suddenly, he notices someone's presence and Chan arrives there. He asks for the chairman's whereabouts from him. Meanwhile, Nangam also figures that Chan most likely will try to attack the chairman and asks for his location. However, the chairman is already in trouble. Chan gives a few sleeping pills to the chairman's girlfriend. And Chan informs us that this man is full of evil deeds. He has committed numerous crimes and gotten away with them thanks to his connections in the police force. Chan is infuriated by this. However, before he could punish the old man, Nangman and others arrive inside as Chan holds him hostage. When Nangman tries to intimidate him into leaving the chairman, Chan yanks out the weapon in a fit of rage, causing him to collapse to the ground while heavily bleeding and eventually passing away there. And Chan gets arrested. However, as they're heading to the police station, Chan asks the cops to loosen up the handcuffs since it's hurting him. As the call opens the handcuff, he begins to bite him and they start fighting. And Chan manages to grab their pistol and shoots at them. In this way Chan escapes from the cops. The next morning, as Lee and Robin are having breakfast, they hear the news about Chan, who was arrested last night and escaped after killing 2 of the officers. Though before escaping, he confessed that he was following the orders from Robin and Lee as they show their faces on live television. He goes to a dentist friend of his for help. They plan to leave the country via boat. As they are moving ahead, Robin gets a call from the dentist and hears Chan over the call. Chan threatens him to come and meet with him, but he doesn't respond. They stop at a bus station. Robin plans to go separately by bus and asks him to move ahead as it'll be safer. However, Lee is confused. As he heads out to check for the bus route, Lee quickly grabs Robin's phone and installs a location tracker application on his phone. And they depart separately. He arrives at the location where he meets with the guy who hands over his new identity and passport. Meanwhile, Robin goes to meet with Detective Nangam to inform him about Chan's location. During this, we see that Chan has found out Nangam's parents. And Nangam receives a call all of a sudden and he starts running outside. As he arrives at the hospital and gets to know that Chan has killed his father, he loses his mind and sets out to find Chan with Robin. Although Robin offers to assist in finding Chan, he asks him to leave Lee alone because he is a sincere person. During this time, Lee decides to go in search of Robin instead of carrying out his original plan to flee the country. Robin arrives at the location to meet with Chan. However, Chan notices that he brought Nangman with him, and we see that Lee has also arrived outside the abandoned factory. Nangman points the gun at Chan to kill him, and Chan notices that Lee has also arrived and gets excited to see him. All of a sudden he points a gun at him and shoots. And they all scatter around the place and begin to fire at each other. Lee comes from behind and stabs Chan. They begin to fight. Robin also comes in between them as Nangman points his gun at them and shoots, but the bullets ends up hitting Robin instead of Chan. Lee begins to cry and asks Chan why did he have to interfere when they could have just left the country and lived their different lives. Chan says that it's because he was curious and jealous of Lee being able to distinguish criminals among normal people and wanted to see it himself. As he's at the verge of death, he also wants to let Nangman know why he killed his father, and we go to a flashback, where we learn that Chin was once a sincere and honest police officer working under the supervision of Nangam's father, Mr. Jang. Chan has consistently made an effort to get along with his coworkers, particularly Mr. Jung, but he has always been treated unfairly by him because Chan's father was a murderer. One day, Jang asked him to hand over a box to the cafeteria lady Huang as she's heading back to China. He goes to give the box to her at the cafeteria. However, later at home, through the news he gets to know that Huang was caught illegally smuggling drugs to China. Chan tells him that his father was a corrupt police officer. And he confronted Jang, but Jang refused to recall any of that ever happening. Instead, he started bullying Chan, calling him a killer's son. Chan couldn't take it anymore and started hitting Jang with the stick, and got arrested. However, he doesn't feel any remorse since Jang deserved to die. Lee wants to kill Chan and tries to take the gun from Nangman, but he refuses to give him. Suddenly, Chan takes out the knife from his wound and goes to stab Lee. However, he gets shot by Nangman. Now both Robin and Chan are dead, and Lee wants to end this at this point. He wants Nangam to shoot him. He pulls the trigger. However, Lee's luck once again saves him. Finally, Nagam drops the urge to kill Lee and leaves from there. Lee has left Korea and is not living in another country. One day though, he gets caught by a few police officers, as they got to know that he's been living in the country with a fake passport and identity, but they're confused why is he hiding since he has no previous criminal records in Korea, which surprises Lee, and he gets deported back to Korea. However, he can't just stop being a hero. Let me know your thoughts if Lee and Robin were right to do this or not, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, take care.